Okay, Communication Merit Badge Part 2. We are starting on page 27, the 5-minute speech. A short speech consists of an introduction, the main body, and a closing. Your goal for Requirement 3 is to introduce yourself and hook your listeners. Deliver information so that the audience understands it and end in a memorable way. The trick is to know what you are going to say and to organize it well. Your speech will be better if you choose a topic that you are personally familiar with and know about. A good way to start a speech is to tell a short anecdote or a little story, which audiences love to hear. Telling a personal story allows the audience to feel comfortable with you and helps you relax before you start your main presentation. When you have finished a simple outline, write the main points and some additional minor points on numbered index cards. Do not write out your speech or try to memorize it word for word. That will result in a stiff-sounding presentation. You want your speech to flow naturally as it would in a conversation. Page 28 has a sample outline. Page 29 has some tips for dealing with stage fright. On the sample outline, this big box right here, it's talking about the Dutch oven. So in a sample outline, what you really want to have is an introduction. So, really short, really brief, introduce what you're talking about. The next section is your body. So that's the body of your speech or your essay, basically. This is how to select a Dutch oven and why, tips for cooking, how to clean, and one-pot wonders. So just information about, a Dutch oven. In conclusion, you need to hook your audience. You need to make them want to use a Dutch oven or be really interested in why that's cool and what they need to know. So that's your sample outline, not word for word. Practice your speech. Do it in front of a mirror, in the shower, while riding your bike, almost anywhere. You will find that the words flow much more naturally after you have gone over the speech a few times. Ask your family or a few friends to listen to your speech and give you ideas for improvement. As you speak, remember to look at your audience and smile. Keep your notes handy in case you need to refer to them. Finally, to make sure you are maintaining eye contact, standing in a confident posture, and looking relaxed, ask someone to record your speech as a movie using a smartphone. When you play it back, you can observe yourself and make appropriate adjustments. So page 29 has tips for dealing with stage fright. Many people get nervous at the thought of speaking in public. That is natural. Here are some tips for staying calm so that you enjoy giving your speech. Know your subject. Give your talk about a topic that you are genuinely interested in and know something about. Organize your thoughts. Instead of writing out your entire speech, write only the main points. Practice, practice, practice. Rehearse your speech alone or in front of others at least 3 times. Doing this will help you feel more at ease when you are presenting your speech. Be yourself. Don't try to copy a television host or a politician. Speak as if you were talking to a good friend. Act confident. Even if you feel nervous, do not tell the audience. Smile and look individual audience members in the eye. Speak with a full voice. Do not rush your words. Soon you will start to feel as confident as you act. Get experience. Seek out opportunities to speak in public instead of trying to avoid them. The more you do it, the more comfortable you will get. Tips for interviewing and introducing a guest speaker. Let's say you have a neighbor who is a police detective. To fulfill requirement 4, you would like to interview her and prepare an introduction to deliver to your counselor, as though she were to be a guest speaker at your next troop meeting. You also need to show your counselor how you will invite your neighbor to speak at the meeting. Here is how you could approach the task. Call your neighbor on the telephone. Have a small notebook and pen or a laptop or computer with you when you make the call. If you have a wireless headset for a cell phone, you can listen hands-free while typing your notes. Tell the neighbor that you are a member of Scouts BSA and ask her politely if you could interview her as a part of your communication merit badge. Explain that the requirements include interviewing and preparing to introduce a guest speaker. If she agrees to help you, ask if this is a good time to talk. If she says yes, ask her about her background and take notes. If it is not a good time, ask when you might call again. Here are some questions that will help you prepare an introduction. Do not be afraid to ask the person politely to slow down or repeat a statement you are not able to write down the information fast enough. Some bullet points here. What is your full name and professional title? How long have you been in your current position? What are your duties? What position did you have before this one? What do you like best about your career? What is the most difficult challenge you face in your position? Did you go to college or receive special training? What activities or interests do you enjoy when you are not working? Is there anything else you would like to tell me about yourself? Based on the person's answers, write a short introduction of the speaker. Stick to the most important and interesting facts. You do not have to tell everything you learned. Write a few key points on index cards that you can use as reminders. Keep your introduction short, but practice it several times. When you and your buddy meet with your counselor to show how you would introduce the speaker, bring your index cards. The cards will help you remember details that you would like to include. Stand up, go to the front of the room, face the audience, smile at your counselor confidently, and address the audience. Your counselor knows you, so keep this informal. Then give a brief introduction of the speaker and sit down. So the example. Here is an example. Thanks for coming today. Our special guest speaker is Detective Kate Moore, a 10-year veteran with the Minneapolis Police Department. Detective Moore has solved many puzzling crimes in our area. She has a bachelor's degree in law enforcement from Iowa State University. When she is not working, she teaches karate and coaches Little League Baseball. Detective Moore has graciously agreed to speak to us today about her position and other opportunities in law enforcement. Please welcome Detective Kate Moore. And that's your speech. The blue box on page 32. Open-ended questions are a good way to get information from someone without seeming pushy. This kind of question gives the person flexibility in answering. For example, you might ask, "How is your business doing financially?" rather than, "Are you losing money?" Other examples of open-ended questions are, "What is the best thing about winning a marathon?" and "How has being an Eagle Scout helped you in life?" Conducting a more in-depth interview. You might have a chance to interview someone about an important subject. This could happen because you have a class assignment or are writing an article for school newspaper. An in-depth interview is a good way to conduct research. Watch broadcast journalists interview people on TV. Notice how they show that they are paying attention to the person they are interviewing. See how they phrase questions and get good responses. Here are some pointers. Decide what information you need and whom to interview to get it. Research a topic of the interview. Take notes on a notepad or a laptop. If you want to record the interview, practice in advance with the equipment you plan to use. Prepare your questions in advance. Use a closed-ended question to get a specific answer. So, for example, how many weeks did you work on your Eagle Service project? We'll get a more precise answer than, how hard was it to do your Eagle Service project? If you contact the person by phone, ask if this is a good time to talk. If you do not understand a response, ask the same question in another way. Save your hardest questions for last. By then, your subject should be more comfortable with you and more willing to answer difficult questions. If you run out of time and still have more questions, ask the person for permission to call back. Read your notes and replay your recording if you made one as soon as you can after the interview. While the conversation is still fresh in your mind, rewrite or type your notes for easier reading. A tip here. Your task is not to write down everything every person says. Wait until you hear someone give an opinion about an issue or debate, a main point of the meeting, then start writing. Everyone has a unique way of taking quick notes. You probably do this in class or in emails and text messages. For instance, you might use EZ for the word easy, or a downward arrow for the word down. Without may become W/O, and department can become DEPT. Develop your own shorthand style. Our next section on page 33 is reporting an event objectively. With your counselor's and parents' approval, attend a public meeting for requirement 5. You can find a list of public meetings in the local newspaper or on a local website. Take a notebook and a couple of pens or pencils or your laptop or a computer tablet to the meeting. To be best prepared, find out if the group has a website. If so, look online for the meeting agenda and print a copy to review before the meeting. Otherwise, pick up an agenda when you arrive. Sit near the front so you can hear the speakers, but be ready to turn around and face people in the audience who may stand up to speak. During the meeting, think of yourself as a witness or observer. Try not to judge what people are saying or form an opinion about the topic of the discussion. Don't be swayed toward one side or the other. Just listen attentively and quietly and record what individuals say about the topic. As soon as you can, after you get home, when the meeting is still fresh on your mind and you can easily remember what people said, write a report of the meeting. Reread the agenda to help you recall what happened. Make the report as unbiased and factual as possible. Focus on topics that were debated or discussed. Avoid including details of everything you saw and heard. For example, imagine that you attended a city council meeting. The city council discussed 6 proposals, but only one of them, whether to turn a city park into a much-needed parking garage, became a topic of debate. Give a short summary of each proposal, but focus on the parking garage issue, which caused a discussion. Report what people on all sides of the issue said and what, if any, action the council took. Stick to the facts and record a variety of viewpoints. Do not state your own opinion in the report. Did the council make a decision, or did it agree to postpone making a decision? Did the parties compromise on one or more issues? Did anyone agree to take further action? Be sure to report the outcome. Be sure to record the council's actions on each agenda item. Even if some items were boring, you can keep these sections of your report short. For example, if the city council voted to approve funds to fix 8 potholes on Hightower Road, that is all you need to say on the topic. Keep your report to 1 or 2 pages and summarize the main issues and points of view covered at the meeting. Moving on to teaching skills and using teaching aids. Page 37. Teaching skills and teaching aids. How you teach the skill will depend on whom you plan to teach. For example, how would you teach a Cub Scout? How would your plan change if you were teaching a boater or a rock climber? For requirement 6, you will develop a plan to teach a skill or inform someone about a subject. Start by making an outline. Use a process similar to the one you use to prepare your short speech. As you form the outline, think about how you could break down the subject into step-by-step instructions. Pick a subject or a skill that is 1, something you know well, and 2, something that a friend, relative, troop member might like to learn. Also, decide who you will teach. For example, if you know a lot about knots, you could choose to teach a friend how to tie a few basic knots. First, choose 4 basic knots that are useful in different situations. Think about how you learn to tie each one. For each knot, write an outline that lists the steps for how to tie the knot. List the best uses for each one. Next, find pictures of how to tie each knot. Look in the Scouts BSA handbook for boys or Scouts BSA handbook for girls, other scouting resources, library books, and search the internet. You might want to enlarge these diagrams on a photocopier or computer printer to make them easier for a beginner to follow. Get 2 pieces of rope that are long enough for knot tying, one for yourself and one for the friend you will teach. Use the ropes and the pictures as teaching aids to help your friend learn how to tie the knots. Before the teaching session, practice how you will show your friend this skill. Since this is a hands-on skill, consider whether it would be better if the 2 of you sat side by side or across from each other. Which way will make the instruction go more smoothly? Page 38 is how to tie the carrot bend. I'm not going to read all of that. Demonstrate each step slowly. If your friend gets confused or frustrated, slow down or start over. If something is hard for the person to master, you might have to rethink the way you are teaching or choose an easier knot. Take a short break if the frustration level gets too high. Be cheerful and encouraging when you teach. People learn skills best if they can make mistakes without worrying that you will laugh at them or get mad. Be a positive role model. You can often make someone feel better by saying, "I had the same problem when I first started tying this knot. Try this." Ask whether your friend has any questions and be sure to answer them thoroughly before moving on. Before you and your buddy see your counselor to demonstrate the skill you have successfully taught, review the topic with your friend one last time. After the demonstration is over, meet with your counselor to discuss how well you were able to pass on your knowledge or skill to your friend. Praise your friend's efforts honestly and often. This is called positive reinforcement, and it is a great teaching and learning tool. Teaching aids. The knot diagrams are examples of teaching aids. Another example is the memory trick described earlier for remembering a person's name. Another kind of memory trick is to use a word or phrase called a mnemonic device. By using the first letter of each word in a phrase, you can remember something important. For example, if you want to remember the names of the Great Lakes, just think of the word Holmes for Huron, Ontario, Michigan, Erie, and Superior. Teaching aids can be pictures, maps, a chalkboard, props, memory tricks, or anything else that works. Aids do not have to be fancy or expensive. Anything that you can think of that will help you teach a subject or make the experience more hands-on and fun, or help the person understand what you are saying, will help that person learn more quickly. Moving on to page 41, Active Communication and the Digital Revolution. As you decide how to fulfill Requirement 7, try something different and challenging. Letters to the editor. Many Scouts write to the editor, or the mascot of the National Scouting publication, Boys Life, if they choose Requirement 7A. Letters to Pedro are sometimes answered in the magazine by the editor-in-chief who pretends to be Pedro. In their letters, readers of Boys Life often address Pedro as Hay Breath or taco-eating Mailboro. They might tell Pedro how much they liked a particular story in the magazine. At other times, they write to correct a mistake they saw in print or tell the Boys Life editors about interesting trips or campouts their troop has planned that year. All letters to the editor of any publication are carefully read. Editors want to know what readers like and dislike about their publication. They are constantly trying to serve their readers better with what is published. The blue box at the bottom of this page. Even if you are sending a letter to the editor by email, always keep your letter formal and include your name and return address. For privacy reasons, your address will not appear in the publication. However, editors need to be able to make sure you are who you say you are. Before you write a letter to a newspaper or magazine, read the publication well. Look at its masthead, the short section that lists the staff by names and positions. It usually has other key information, such as the newspaper's or magazine's address. The masthead often is printed on the editorial page of a newspaper or near the front or back pages of a magazine. If the masthead does not list the editor name, address your letter, Dear Managing Editor. Unless you are writing to Pedro, your approach should be formal. Write the person's full name, title, the name of the publications, and its address in the top left-hand corner of your letter. Begin the body of your letter with Dear Mr. or Dear Miss, followed by a colon. In your first sentence, state why you are writing this letter to the editor. Here are some examples of good opening sentences. I am writing to say how much I enjoyed Dan McLean's story on high adventure scout camps. Or, Drew Norton's piece on rappelling was highly informative. However, the third paragraph contained an error that could lead to an unsafe climbing situation. Back up your first statement with more detail or an explanation. If you are expressing an opinion, do so respectfully. Don't be mean or aggressive. Back up your opinion with personal experience and/or facts you have learned about the subject. You may want to suggest a way to solve the problem or issue that is different from what the publication proposed. If you do this, explain your solution clearly. Make your letter only a few sentences long, or at the most, several paragraphs. End the letter with sincerely or best regards. Then skip 4 lines and type your name, address, city, state, and zip code. Spell check your letter on your computer before sending it. Print it out and read it carefully again. Make sure that you wrote in complete sentences, that you stated your idea or opinion clearly, and that your letter is error-free. If possible, have a parent, teacher, or older friend read your letter too. Ask this person to point out any mistakes or things that are still unclear. Do not feel offended by their remarks. Once you have fixed any mistakes, sign your name in the space you left before you typed your name and address. The green box at the end of page 43. Many newspapers now have their own websites where they allow readers to comment on specific articles. The comments usually appear with the reader's name or screen name. If you decide to post a comment this way, you must first get your parents' and counselor's permission. While this may be a much more informal way to express your opinion than a traditional letter to the editor, you should still be respectful of others. Some individuals challenge comments left by other readers. This can quickly lead to a flame war in which parties trade insulting remarks. Flame wars are a waste of time. Do not get involved in one. Okay, we are going to pause on page 44, starting with digital communication.